Gregory Sneed. Today is the 13th of March, or in my Brooklyn accent, 13th, and of the year 2025. And we are glad you are here today. Our guest today is going to be Gary L. Polk, and we'll be hearing from him and about his Polk Institute Foundation. At that time, he'll share us what the L stands for and where he's from. We didn't get a chance to capture that, so we don't know if he's from California or from the Midwest or down south or South Kakalaki or St. Louis even.
No. 314 this Friday.
But my name is Gregory Sneed, and founder and CEO of Lifesaver Financial Services, helping my clients to keep more of the money they make. And now it's my pleasure to welcome to the virtual stage the Women's History Month queen of the community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you guys are here. We got another great guest that's going to wow you, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So you'll get some great tips here. This is his space. And we are happy to have him here. The community briefing was an inspiration of mine during the pandemic. It was to make sure that we were accessible to all information that was very important to us surviving that 4 years. And so now we're back because we have another 4 years we have to survive. And so hopefully we'll survive this one because it's much more intense than that last one. So this platform is our platform. We're growing it. This is our media where we're telling you information that's going to help you and help your business, help our community, help us to unite as one, because that's more important than ever now. So please share it with everyone. Go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe so you'll know if you can't make it, you'll be able to get the replays over there. We have some amazing guests over the last couple of years, and we have an incredible team. But before I introduce them, this platform is powered and sponsored by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black BBA, the Black Business Association. Miss Sarah Harris, she's joined us today, and is monetarily sponsored by the Los Angeles LDC, Mr. Michael Banner, team over there, Southern California, Edison, Wells Fargo, SoCal Gas, and PCR, and any other alphabets and logos that want to be up on that banner. Y'all are more than welcome to come on down so that we can continue to maintain the platform. So with that, our team is incredible. You've already met Greg. He's our moderator, and Ms. Robin Billups, she is going to introduce herself. Mr. Stephen Turner is the producer, and he reaches out to all of our potential guests. And so we are so thankful for him. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Greetings, everybody. Always glad to be here. Robin Billups with the Billups Group. I assess, coach, and help folks to get to a strategic framework for the mission and the vision that was given to them for their business. I'm glad to be here. I had an opportunity to attend the KJLH Proven Achievers Luncheon last Friday, and I just want to share something that I received from Pastor Epps. He did grace, and in that grace, he mentioned he didn't say KJLH, kindness, joy, love, and happiness. He said KJLH, kindness, joy, love, and hope. And I really, really like that. But he read a stanza from a poem that's called What I Live For by George Banks. This poem was written in the 1800s. I'm just going to read the last stanza because we need to hear this. I live for those that love me, for those who know me true, for heaven that smiles above me and awaits my spirit too. For the wrong that needs resistance, for the cause that lacks assistance, and for the future in the distance and the good that I can do. We can all do some good. We did so again today. We have an exceptional guest who's going to be talking to us. He's like me. He's very rigid when it comes to business, and I'm looking forward to his presentation. I'm going to kick it over to Greg.
Thank you, Robin. So, Mr. Gary L. Polk is the president of the Polk Institute Foundation, and as president and co-founder of Polk Institute Foundation, he's on a mission to change the world for Black and Latino entrepreneurs. As a distinguished adjunct professor of business management, ethics, and entrepreneurship at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, Gary has used his experience to serve as an independent business advisor at Pacific Coast Region, SBDC, where he is a well-known figure in the entrepreneur ecosystem that encompasses LA County. And from PCR and SBDC, we have Mr. Joseph Duncan, and we see a Colette Moore. We got a Colette Moore sighting. All right. Moreover, he has served as the executive director of 2 business incubators. Firstly, the 2 years he successfully turned around the South Bay Entrepreneurial Center, the SBEC, the acronyms there, leading it from the red ink to the black ink. And then secondly, Gary was the founder and the first executive director of the Innovation Incubator at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, where he served 3 years before returning full-time teaching in 2019. He received his Bachelor of Arts in Marketing Finance from Loyola Marymount University of Los Angeles, his Master of Science in Administration from Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, and his areas of research include strategic management, ethics, entrepreneurship, and he was recently honored with the NFTE, no idea what that stands for, Volunteer Award along with his wife, Claudine. We don't know where he's from. He's going to tell us that in a moment. We don't know what the L stands for. So please join me in welcoming Gary L. Polk.
All right. Thank you. Well, in my younger days, I had a hard time sharing, but I can tell you the L is for Lynn. I got into a couple fights over that being a girl's name, so I would not want to reveal that. But no, I spent most of my life here in LA. My parents are from Texas, and I remember going down to Texas. I had family there, would come back to LA and say, "Hey, mom, dad, thanks for moving to LA." I'm more of an LA guy. So anyway, thanks for the nice introduction. NIFTY is Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And they are nationwide. They had a local chapter here, and now they have, I think they're in a regional basis. So I think they closed up the LA office, and now they're represented in San Francisco for the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, those are that part of it. I decided during the beginning of the pandemic to try to do something positive. And I started teaching in 1991 at Cal State Northridge, the Minority Business Program. And they wanted to bring more Black and Latinos to Northridge, because at that time, it was very few of us out there. And so the Polk Institute started in 2020. It's kind of a full circle. So we targeted at the beginning underrepresented Black and Brown. And once we started, women were our biggest group by far. Like 70% of our people coming in. So we started targeting women and veterans. And so basically, our whole thing that makes us unique is that we focus on social entrepreneurship. So does anyone in the room know what I mean when I say the triple bottom line?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the triple bottom line is people, planet, profit. And I was at Dominguez in 2018. In 1 week, I went to 3 social entrepreneur related events. And wow, it just blew me away to find out what that meant and what that stood for. So like some of the people in the room with the gray whiskers like me were baby boomers, and we were taught the business of business is business, which translates to the business of business is profit. So forget the planet, make a profit. Forget people, make a profit. And I know from an academic standpoint, for the last 30 years, we've been teaching MBA's profit maximization. So I am definitely into capitalism. I believe in working for a profit. But when I heard of people, planet, profit, that really suits me much better, because I think that is a business model that's more sustainable. And I think it's the right thing to do. There was once upon a time that we thought the ocean was infinite and we could throw whatever we wanted to in the ocean and it didn't matter. Well, research has shown that if we keep this pace, we could have more plastic water bottles in the ocean than fish. And that's not a good idea. How we treat customers, employees, and people really matters. And then there's some that tell you that it's zero sum, they can't coexist. It's too expensive to have a social conscience. And that's not true either. I think we can work and take care of our customers and our people, our employees. I think we can work and take care of the planet and still make a profit. So that's really what social entrepreneurship is all about. And so there's some a company organization called the B Corp, and they actually certify for-profit entities to become social entrepreneurs. And you get this B label that you put on your website. So Patagonia's, Ben and Jerry Ice Cream, Paul Newman, those are some of the high reference or high profile B Corps. Beneficial Business Bank or Beneficial State Bank is a B Corp, one of the few commercial banks that actually are certified as a B Corp. So they started in 2006 in New York, and now I think they've certified like 8,000 companies nationwide. But it's interesting. Social entrepreneurship is bigger in South America and in Europe than it is United States. It's larger in Portland, Oregon, than it is in LA. So one of my goals is to try to get LA above Oregon. How can Oregon be ahead of us? But it's really just the mentality of exposure. And so we want to do as much as we can. So if I can share a slide with you.
Please do.
Can you see my slide?
Yep.
So our mission is to serve social entrepreneurs to help make the world a better place. And our vision is to launch 1,000 social entrepreneurships by 2032. And we really want to try to be the one organization that fosters social entrepreneurship, because I really believe in my heart of hearts that it's really the right way to do business. I know Joseph was a former banker. Robin was a former banker. I'm not sure if any other bankers in the room, but we all learned that the 5 C's of credit, number one is character. And so I, at B of A, learned character and the value of relationships. And I've used that for the rest of my professional career, and it's worked very well for me. So when you think about character, our number one value at the Polk Institute is doing the right thing when no one is watching. And to us, what we're trying to do at the Polk Institute is turn out not only leaders that believe in social entrepreneurship, but also leaders that have high character and ethics. Because at the end of the day, that's all we really have. I remember, and I'm sure Joseph remembers, Robin may have ran into it. Well, I have 2 pairs of books. I have one set that I give to the IRS, and I have another set that I really make my real money. And I learned, well, we'll take those that you give to the IRS, because if there's a problem down the road, we're going to rely on this. So you may think you can afford this $500,000 house, but based on these financials you're giving me from the IRS, you're not qualifying. Yeah, but I make this other money, real money. Yeah, but you can't prove that. So it goes back to doing business the right way. And I learned how to do business the right way. It's all about ethics and character. And that's what I really believe in today. So I didn't want to do a lot of talking. I know that there's going to be some Q&A, but I did want to at least start off with the triple bottom line. And hopefully, if nothing else you remember from this, people, planet, profit can coexist, and it's the right way of business. And we're still going after a profit, because ultimately that's what capitalism is all about. It's not really about a paycheck. I think we can build legacies through profit business than we can through paychecks. So with that, Robin or Crystal, any questions?
Yeah, Gary, we value your ethics, we value your character. Again, we try to bring people on this show who align with our mission and vision, and that's to impart information, to illuminate, to incite, be insightful, and to identify resources. Talk to us a little bit about the offerings at the Polk Institute. You know, again, to your point, my degree is in journalism and I actually grew up in banking, but I was blessed to have had some exceptional leaders early on who were very ethical, who saw me not just as a Black person, but as a woman employee in commercial real estate, which was a big thing back in the day. You know, we got some tenure on us. But talk to us about the offerings at the Polk Institute, because as we do weekly, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who dial into this show. We have a lot of people who don't really realize, my opinion, everybody is an entrepreneur. You have your own brand, you have your own character, you have your own credit, and you offer that up, be it internally with a corporation or an organization, or individually as a proprietor. So talk to us about some of the offerings that you have, and then I want to further talk about your executive program that you have.
Okay. So when we started the Polk Institute, we did a little research. We found the student debt was a $1.6 trillion. And they said that the average student loan was like 36,000. If you went to an Ivy or a private school, it could be over 100,000. But in the same article, U.S. World News Report, it talked about 15 universities that were tuition free. And I never heard of a tuition free university. So it turns out when you read the article that our 5 military academies are all tuition free. So we decided, why couldn't we start a entrepreneur training program, make it tuition free, target underrepresented Black and Browns who normally don't get the resources, and then go to banks and corporations and foundations for funding to finance our operation. So that's what we did. So we started with an incubator program, and Zoom technology really helped. I recall Colette, she's in the room. COVID hit in March 2020, all hands on deck. Anybody knows anything about banking and money, we need you to help the SBA out to talk about the PPP and the EIDL loans. And all of a sudden, we went from in person. I was out at the Compton office with Joseph, and we'd be in there, and people would come in and see us in person. And then everything flipped to Zoom. We were doing workshops. We went from in-person workshops to Zoom workshops. So Zoom technology really helped the Polk Institute by able to offer all of our workshops on Zoom, and then our individual coaching with our clients using Zoom as well. So if you remember, you used to have to go get a hotel room to do a webinar or a seminar, or to a restaurant or some other place, and Zoom technology took care of that. I guess one of my wishes is that I had invested in Zoom in 2019, because now everybody from baby boomers to Gen Z and Gen Alpha know about Zoom and how that works. I heard that Skype just recently got shut down because Zoom is killing them.
Yeah,
But
Dr.
anyway,
Dr. Rosie made a killing. I mean, a killing. The very first day of the pandemic, she invested quite a bit of money in Zoom, and she's the only one I know that did that. that knew it right off the bat. And so, yeah, she
was a visionary, or somebody in the know knew it. So anyway, we do it on. So we decided to do 2-hour sessions on Thursday nights, and our first class we had 25, 26 in 2001, and 17 were women. In our second class, we had 22 and 19 were women. And that's why I referred to earlier and said, hey, we better switch this, because the women entrepreneurs are the ones who really want this and hungry for it. And so we started targeting them as well. Then we added a accelerator, because we take the long view of training. We have a entrepreneur workshop for 4 hours, and I know that you can't learn enough about entrepreneur finance in 4 hours. So we decided to add a accelerator group. So today we have an incubator for companies that are in ideation to early stage, but usually pre-revenue, and it's 11 months. And then we follow up with an accelerator If you've been in business 1 year or more, or at least 50,000, you can start in the accelerator, or you just take 2 years, because the second is also a 11-month program. And then we created a alumni program. So when you finish those two, if you still want to be with us, you still feel like you have things to learn, or as a CEO, now you realize that maybe you need some support. So we started this alumni program for those who graduated through our system. So it's been working very well. Then Robin asked about our other group, and we decided in 2023, we partnered with the Urban League on a pilot, and we called it the Legacy Cohort. We targeted companies that were 10 years or more with at least 500,000 in sales, with either a need to grow, a need to set up a management succession plan, or an exit strategy. And I know from my banking days, a lot of companies, regardless of color or ethnicity or background or industry, weren't prepared for that next step. And that's called exit.
Mhm.
What's interesting, in the startup world, we talk exit at the beginning, because a lot of companies in the startup world, the way it is today, in today's entrepreneur, a lot of them are learning you start and you want to exit in 5 years to get paid and then start another company. So it's two different models out there. But those existing companies, and we found some success. And there's an organization out there some of you may have heard of called Visage International.
Mhm.
So Visage was founded like in 1957. I was a Visage member for a while, and then I went through the Visage training to become a chair. At Dominguez, I told him I was getting ready to become the Visage chair, and my provost said, "Well, that's a conflict of interest. You can't be our executive director of the incubator and the Visage chair." I said, "No, I think it's a compliment. I'm going to be
No
bringing in
question.
CEOs of companies with 10 million or more in sales, and they'll be able to work with our people who are starting up new businesses or are not at the 10 million level." He said, "No, Gary, it's a conflict. Take us or them, take one of them." So I stayed with Dominguez for that time. And once I left and started the Polk Institute, I decided I was going to take this business model and make that a part of the Polk Institute. So after a successful pilot in 23, we launched it full scale in 24 and had some great success. So Robin, that kind of sets it up to where you may want to join in here.
That's excellent. The idea, to your point, folks need to clearly understand these steps, right? That Rome wasn't built in a day. And so everybody wants to own their own business, but being strategic about how you get there. The other thing that is very intriguing to me, when folks say that they want to own their own business and they want to start from scratch, I always recommend that they start really, really doing the due diligence to look at acquiring a business versus starting from scratch. What's your take on that?
That is a great strategy, in my opinion. Um, I don't know, anyone in the room heard of the silver tsunami?
Yeah.
Joseph, what is the silver tsunami?
It's the number of baby boomers that are going to be retiring and selling businesses over the next several years.
Mhm.
Being a baby boomer myself, we're starting to reach that age where we're looking for exit strategies. And we deal with clients all the time that haven't properly planned for their exit, but are starting to think about it. In fact, we do a legacy webinar in person with the NHS once a quarter, talking about that very topic.
Absolutely. Yep. I knew Joseph knew about that. So it is going on. It's not just locally, it's going on nationwide. As he mentioned, baby boomers really control quite a few industries. So it's a variant. And so it really doesn't matter. So sometimes you start from scratch, sometimes you start from ground zero, but maybe it makes sense to look at an existing law practice, CPA practice, plumbing, any kind of business you can imagine is out there, and buy and understand what that takes. And sometimes that might be a better strategy. But if you're on the baby boomer side, then you really want to look at what are the options. And so, what we talk about with our legacy, we bring in subject matter experts. So, how do you exit? Well, one exit is you could give to family. Well, that could work, but maybe your family's not interested. Maybe they saw what you went through and don't want to be part of that. Another option is employees. You could do something called an ESOP and make them employee owners. Well, that could be an option, but maybe the employees don't have the wherewithal to run the business. They don't have the management skill level, but that's still an option. But then a third option is sell to an investor. And there are a couple kinds of investors out there. But the fourth option is the worst option, to do nothing and let it go. And we've seen, I know I've seen in LA, and sure some of you have as well, people that did not get ready and did nothing, and it went through probate or it went through wherever, but all of a sudden that existing legacy is gone. So we see that as an opportunity that the Polk Institute could try to reach our goal or our vision to get to 1,000 entrepreneurships by 2032 is work with the legacy. So we're working on both ends. We're working on the early stage to brand new businesses trying to grow, to the legacy stage. And I really think that the legacy stage is different because we charge tuition or membership fees to be a legacy member, whereas our incubator and accelerator are both tuition free. We didn't want to give debt to people after realizing the debt that a lot of these young people have today. So our incubator, accelerator, tuition free, but our legacy, we do charge a monthly membership. And think of it as a CEO advisory, but I'm into education. So every meeting we spend 2 hours on subject matter experts. And last month, Robin was our subject matter expert talking about certification and procurement. And the room, our people are still buzzing about Robin. Wow, Robin was amazing. I happened to be sick that day, so I missed it. But everyone is still talking, and that was mid-February. And here we are almost mid-March, and they're still talking about Robin Billups and the knowledge and information. And I think what they really liked about was her energy and her sincerity. And I think it's cool that when you have a person comes in and have high energy and positive, but also has the high character and what we talked about earlier, and that's Robin. And everyone who knows her that way. So thank you for being there, Robin. But she's an example of the kind of people that we've been bringing in. We bring in attorneys, we're bringing in bankers. There are banks that will make you a loan to buy an existing business. So one thing we found is that a lot of people don't know what they don't know, and they haven't been exposed. So I've been blessed to be around in banking. My last assignment at B of A, I was in Beverly Hills. So I saw things in Beverly Hills that I didn't see in Culver City, West LA, or Santa Monica. They do things different. And the average folks like us in the room who live in Beverly Hills or PV or South Redondo are business owners. They don't work for big corporations. So it's risky. The definition of an entrepreneur is a risk taker, but financial freedom is what a lot of us want, and not have to worry about early retirement or what they used to call that. They came up with this new program where they were giving people in their 50s pink checks saying, see you later.
Yeah. You actually got a point, Gary, because one of the industries which I've always felt that we as Black people have not capitalized on, and we're the primary, especially women, the primary consumers of is the beauty supply industry businesses, and a lot of them, the Korean are South, they're ready, they're baby boomers and some plus, and are looking to sell. So those are available. And if a consortium of hairstylists that have been very, very successful pool their money together, then they could actually buy one. There's a couple of them that have popped up in Los Angeles. Glow and Flow is over on La Brea and Centinela, and they just bought another one that is in Hawthorne. And then there's another new one that's over in Ladera Shopping Center, but that is prime for the population, especially when 85% of the customers are Black women, and if you buy one already fully equipped, then you can just move in where they are. And though some of those beauty supply stores are making 2 million up to 5 million a year because of our dollars and the power of our dollars. So that's an area. There's 3 areas that we should have businesses, and that is the beauty industry, and the hair industry, as well as the entertainment and the sport industry, because that's where, and as somebody told me the other day, the brown liquor industry, because that is where we spend most of our dollars, and as Black people, and it's not a hard sell to get us to recycle our dollars if we are actually using the product. So maybe now that we're in this very interesting time that we're in, and we're boycotting and doing what we're doing, we'll see that boycotting is not enough. Creating businesses that we actually can spend our dollars in that are equivalent to the stores that we are doing. You're so funny, Greg.
Greg,
I
we
saw that in
love
the
you.
That's funny. Yeah, it is a hairy business. But that's what I think. And the second thing is what you talked about is social enterprises. So nowadays, where everybody comes to me, because I'm also a business coach for the Urban League, and I teach a program with Nifty, with the Los Angeles Urban League. When people come to me about nonprofits, like, nah, that ain't the route to go nowadays. You need to really look at the social enterprise of that, because you have to be able to support your own, especially with the mandates that are coming out of Washington today on the language you have to use, the people you can serve, and so forth and so on. So, and if you have to get any kind of federal dollars, that ain't even going to happen if you're serving the population that they've targeted. So I am in complete agreement with you. This is what we should be doing.
Crystal, the other piece to that is you both of you guys have hit the nail on the head. What are the solutions to the problems that we have? Childcare, transportation, logistics. A colleague of mine, one of my mentees, actually got some money from a lawsuit, and he said, "I'm going to start a business." I said, "Why don't you buy a business?" So he bought a trucking company, and I said, "No, you're not in the trucking business. You're in the logistics business." Because if you're moving stuff, you can be moving houses, you can be moving gravel, you can be moving. And so I think what tends to happen is people work in the business, not on the business, and they're not looking at, am I providing a solution to a problem? Am I the answer to a problem? We all know that we run these at-home child cares, but now that if they had government contracts, what are they going to do? So what I strongly suggest is people line up with the legacy kind of businesses. Create an association with somebody like that. Be a subcontractor so that you learn the process and you learn the skill set and you learn what is needed before you go hang your shingle. I tell young people all the time, spend a year in corporate. Nobody wants to work for corporate, but the whole mission is to understand how the game goes, right? We
Yes,
all came up in
absolutely.
a time period where there was some rules and regulations and we could get that information. And it's, and Gary, again, thank you for being willing to come on and talk about your walk and why you do what you do. You know, we literally have always been social entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? We've always been, I personally have always been concerned about the society and concerned about environment because I knew if the Lord blessed me, I was going to have me some kids and I was going to have grandkids, and that's my legacy. So how do we sustain that? So talk a little bit about, you know, we mentioned the things that we use, the hair products and that kind of stuff like that. But there are some other areas, these trades that you mentioned, you know, there are some other support areas that we can be in and make really good money. And the other piece being everybody wants to be the prime supplier. Everybody wants to be the number one guy. What's wrong if you're number 13 and you're still getting that same check? You know? So talk about those tiers of activity and the alliance that can be created with existing businesses.
So I think that's a great point, Robin. You mentioned the nonprofit. There's programs out there now that are teaching nonprofit owners to start your own social enterprise and have that social
Yes.
enterprise fund your nonprofit. So you don't have to
Yeah.
really trash your nonprofit per se, but it does make sense to start a business for profit, and that for profit business can now start funding the
Yep.
nonprofit. So here's something
Yep.
interesting, and this is on a very large scale. Beneficial State Bank is based in Oakland.
Mhm.
They are a commercial bank owned by the Beneficial State Bank Foundation.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing where a foundation can own a commercial bank. So some of us remember the 90s of merger mania in the banking industry, and all these banks merged together because they didn't want to
Mhm.
be taken out by a bigger bank.
Mhm.
Well, if you're owned by a nonprofit, a hostile
Make it you.
takeover can't happen because there are no stockholders of a foundation.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The basis of hostile takeovers were public banks were being taken over by their stockholders who were convinced by another bank that they could do better.
Mhm.
So that's just one example. So if you have a nonprofit, think about how you can come up with a for profit. Right now, the Polk Institute, we're figuring and we're working on a couple ideas to start our own social enterprise while we can fund ourselves. Because
I
grants
love
are
that.
great, but if you lose a grant overnight, you could lose a whole lot of business, a whole lot of employees, et cetera, et cetera.
Fraction. Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing that you asked about the trucking being logistics. See, I think that's a mindset that somehow, Robin, you met someone who understood that. But how many in the room have saw the movie The Founder? Anybody in the room saw the movie The Founder?
Mhm.
Remember the scene where the guy in the bank says, "Let me look at your books. Sir, you're not in the restaurant business, you're in the real estate business."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That became the game changer.
Yeah.
So, Robin, you just mentioned about people with home daycare, and I know there are people who have senior care, foster care homes, but maybe you're not in that care business. Maybe you're in the real estate business.
Mhm.
So I was in a networking group where an Asian lady owned 6 different homes that she ran her caregivers out of.
Mhm.
And so what happens is that a lot of people already know this. You own the property, you set up one corporation, you own the business, that's a different corporation. You sell the business, you still own the property.
Mm-hmm.
Us bankers know we love to make real estate loans because we have a tangible asset that we can go out and appraise, we can check the title, we can file the deed on, and if things go bad, we can foreclose. And that's what the guy told Ray Kroc, and the rest became history.
Yeah.
Because in restaurants, margins are small. Most bankers run away when you say, "Hey, I need a restaurant loan." Are you kidding? I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But I'm on a real estate loan. Oh, sure, we could do that all day long.
Mhm.
but that's just another strategy. I think it's interesting that in 2018, Stanford University did research on Latino-owned businesses and found that 97% had sales less than $1 million.
Mhm.
I said, wow, really? You mean only 3% have sales more than $1 million? And I'll submit that if we did the same survey on Black-owned businesses,
Be
we'd
less.
run into some similar numbers.
Mhm.
So as when you do research, you always have to come up with why did this happen or what do you think? Well, Stanford said it was because of the lack of access to capital. I think that's partially true.
Mhm.
But I think the other part of the equation, they're not getting the right help. They're not starting their businesses the right way. They have these two sets of books. They think that their personal credit doesn't matter to
Mhm.
business credit. Well, every banker in town knows if I'm going to make you a business loan and you have a corporation, I'm going to make you sign a continuing guarantee to attach your personal back to your business. So this setting up another corporation because now you're free and clear doesn't work.
Correct.
Your FICO matters to a business loan. It doesn't matter as much, but it matters. So I think that people are not doing it the right way. I think that people don't start with a good foundation they can build and say, oh, we'll do it halfway. And then when we're successful, we'll fix it. Why not fix it right the first
Out the
time
gate. Yeah.
and build a business that's sustainable? So at the Polk Institute, we want you to come with us. But our number one criteria, you got to be coachable.
Yeah.
If you're not coachable, we can't help you.
Sorry.
Anybody who's worked with anybody knows Joseph smiled and Colette gave me a thumb up because it doesn't work. I coach
Greg, Crystal.
athletes, and it's similar to athletes. You can see an athlete with a lot of talent that's lazy.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted more than your athlete, they're not coachable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be coachable. And with a legacy, we even look at that a little closer because if you've been out there on your own 20 or 30 years, you may not be coachable.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, do you know how to really go through an exit and how that works? And you just ask certain questions, people realize, oh, you know what? Maybe I do need some help on how to do an exit the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we try to do with the legacy. But you got to be coachable. So I see a lot of businesses.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions, Gary, and I want to first. Stephen had his hand up, and then Greg had his hand up, and then there's a question from Simone in the chat box. Stephen, are you
Let's
there?
go for it.
Oh no, I'm just he asked a question and I heard about the movie and I said yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So you know
Greg.
that scene, right?
Yes. Greg?
Yeah, Gary, can you chat a little bit about the number of businesses? We talk about restaurants and where they don't own the property, they don't own the building, so they're leasing, but they're leasing in an area that's got high traffic versus moving to a building or a place or property where they own it, but they may not be in the proximity of traffic, and how a restaurant can be complacent in remaining there. There's a couple of restaurants that were in the vicinity of SoFi, and they didn't own the property, so they ended up having to shut down after being in business a number of years. And so how is the restaurant business able to sustain getting a mortgage loan based on the income? How do they go about that? To making that happen?
Well, I think that's an interesting question, but this is where we need professionals around us. So usually a real estate agent who's been there a while and maybe a broker is the one who could really tell you about real estate and acquiring and what's good real estate and what's bad real estate. If you're a restaurant person, you may not really understand the real estate business, but you can ask a real estate agent to go out, hey, I'm looking for this in this kind of area. Here's the kind of money I want to pay. Or you could look at maybe a retiring restaurateur that is ready to sell everything. But usually it goes through a real estate agent because they're the one who has the license that can handle that part. So you'll find a lot of real estate agents are in what's called buy sell.
Mhm.
Same thing we're talking about. But they're usually experienced real estate agents.
Well, they need to help before they get to the real estate agent because there's a anybody here a real estate agent. I don't want to denigrate anybody, but you've got a wide variety of skill sets with
Commercial.
real estate agents, and they're just going to get you into the property. But you need help in transforming from being in a rental facility with a lot of traffic. How you going to adjust your marketing? Just think of all the places that are in malls and malls are a dying facility, but they've got to move. But malls had built-in foot traffic, whereas you go to a building, you're not getting foot traffic there. People physically now have to drive there. Does that make sense now?
Mhm.
It does make sense, but the thing is, you're talking the business side of being a restaurateur, and if you've ever looked into a franchise and you're serious, they have to show you their financials. And so you look at McDonald's, you look at what's this Bear Diner, Black Bear Diner. Those are franchises. You look at Chick-fil-A. So you got two things. You have the real estate business, as you say, and then you have the franchise or restaurant business. So who's going to be your restaurateur? Are you going to buy an existing? So what I'm really saying, there's no simple answer,
Right.
but you need people with those kind of background, but you also need people with that kind of background that you can trust. And that goes back to the ethics. So
Exactly.
The other part to it, I always tell my clients, and when I do these workshops, you have to vet folks before you have that need, right?
yes,
People, somebody says, I need an attorney. Well, when are you going to do the due diligence to have that person sitting on the bench? So when you need that individual, and to your point, Gary, in regards to, we were back to my comment, working on the business and not in the business. Most people
right.
spend 97% of their time working in the business, not working on the business. And to your point, Greg, from a real estate perspective, um, just in general, folks have to understand you have to watch the trends. The malls have been dying for years. The consolidation of the banks, all of this consolidation has been going on, which is leaving real estate available. I talked many, many years ago to the folks who were in Lamert saying, you're paying $300 a month rent right now. The market is at $1,200. What are you doing with that other money? Because if you're not stashing that so that you could possibly buy this site or buy a location, what are you doing? You're living on the fat of the land because your rent is so cheap. Well, what ended up happening? The little old guy from New York passes away and his kids comes out here and kicks everybody out. And everybody's mad. No, you've been for 22 years, you've been paying $300 a month rent. So, the reality of life will help you make the adjustments or it's going to put you out of business. We have a question here from Simone. What strategies should a tech educator and an author like myself use to implement the triple bottom line?
That's interesting. I guess the real key is, what is your business? Are you a consultant? Are you a teacher? Are you a trainer? So I would ask, because the triple bottom line is applicable to any business. If you're a nonprofit, you're already considered a social entrepreneur. So you don't go through the certification of the B Corp. But if you're not a nonprofit, if you're a for-profit, they have this assessment and they ask these various questions that you have to go through to become. When you're a startup, it's easier to become a B Corp than it is if you've been in business 10 years. Because over 10 years, you may have some employer practices that are not very employee friendly. So that is a very deep question. My contact information is here. I'd rather talk to her one-on-one. Anybody interested in the legacy, let me know. If you're coachable, we think we can help anybody in any business. But one of the things that I know is that if you know your industry, then I can help you with business acumen.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to know your industry. I know banking, I know coaching, I know education, I know insurance, but I don't know trucking. And there's a lot of other businesses that I do not know. So we make a good team if you know your industry. But I think Robin hit it on the head. If you've been in business 20 years and never thought about the next step, then it's kind of hard to all of a sudden do something really quick. But again, if you've been so busy doing it, and didn't create a system, and that's what this Vistage and the legacy is about, you should be able to leave your business one day a month and the doors open and close without you being there.
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
And if,
and Gary, the
if
other thing that we talked about too is the fact that who did you hire? You know, you can't just hire somebody to answer the phone. That person I always tell folks, every person on your staff has to be marketing and business development. Everybody, because you don't know where the business is going to come from. So if you're going to
yes,
hire somebody, you know, I say to folks, when you go to these conferences like today, folks who are on here today, when you leave this and you have a team, do a workshop. Do a debriefing with them on what you learned, you know, have them to do some research, give them some assignments so that you create loyalty, you do professional development with them. So I think that what tends to happen is the owner just takes on the whole thing and pieces off a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then they're not looking at who they've actually hired and are they a good fit? Do they understand the culture? You know, and that type of thing.
so
Wow.
teamwork, you hit it on the head. You got to have a team. You cannot do it all yourself. And you got to be able to trust people.
Hmm.
And that goes back to who you work with.
Hmm.
There's a guy wrote a book about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I don't remember the other 4, but number 1 is lack of trust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Yeah.
you can't trust your teammate, now you have another problem. You got the wrong teammate.
Hmm.
So the author who wrote that book wrote another book called The Ideal Team Player. And he lays out the qualities that you want to look for to have an ideal team player. Now, there's no magic bullets, there's nothing perfect, but it's another way that you can approach. And what he talks about is these 3 attributes that you want to find or look for, and they're not, you got to have all 3. You can't have 1 or 2, you got to have all 3. And I'll just tell you what they are very quickly: humble, hungry, and smart. But when it comes to smart, he doesn't mean IQ, he means EQ,
Hmm.
emotional intelligence. But if you have a person that those 3 attributes, there's a good chance that you can trust that person. Humble, hungry, and smart. And the book is called The Ideal Team Player. If you're a startup, he has a section for startups. If you're an existing business, he has a section for existing businesses. So as an educator, I really like books, but I don't use every book I read. I read the books and recommend the books that I think have value. And I personally say, you know what? This makes sense to me.
Hmm.
It may not make sense to everyone, but I think this is something I can share with others and maybe they get something out of it. Because one thing I learned in coaching basketball, you might learn a system, but maybe you don't do the whole system. Maybe you do the part of the system that works best for you and your organization.
Hmm.
And so again, it
That's
comes
leadership.
into,
That's leadership
well,
right there.
yeah,
That's
it
leadership.
is leadership.
Yeah.
It is leadership. But it's also, I think, the idea of growing and understanding there are other ways to do business. There's no one best way.
Hmm.
No, and as an entrepreneur, I think you know that's why you are that. You get to see it from different sides, and you can't be locked in to one way of doing things because you got to generate revenue, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And you can lose, and if you put all your eggs in one basket for one client, then if they leave, that's it. You're starting over and over and over. So you have to have a system that is continuously feeding in new clients or organizations that are targeting the same customer base that you are in. You have to figure out your route, your way of doing it, but you cannot be inflexible to be an entrepreneur. You got to be Gumby, man, because life changes and environments change and situations change, administrations change, and you have to be able to pivot when you need to pivot, which was our word for, and during the pandemic. If you didn't know how to pivot, man, you were going to die on the vine. And so that's just the going thing of being an entrepreneur. You step out there on faith, but you got to be able to act. You got to have action to make it for you to survive as an entrepreneur. It is not for the weak-hearted, man.
Crystal, again, back to my earlier comment, though, I think that people tend to think I'm either an entrepreneur or I work for somebody. And I truly believe everybody is an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you are.
You have to know the skill set that you have, the value of that skill set. Gary has been as an educator, most of us are coaches. You got to read. You got to take time to read to keep yourself attuned. You got to take time to make sure you stay relevant. This has been an excellent presentation, Mr. Polk. We welcome you back again, and our partner Pacific Coast Regional has posted 2 or 3 workshops that are upcoming, and along with the fact that our leader Sarah Harris has posted 2 or 3 events that are upcoming. Myself and Crystal have also included some things up here. One of the things I want to showcase is the fact that KJLH is sponsoring again their Level Up campaign, and it's for women-owned businesses. You have to do a pitch contest, and the winner gets $10,000 in marketing dollars over a computer and a business coach. So you guys truly take advantage of these things that we're posting here, and support our community, because the whole mission is for us to grow together, not to grow separately. We have to. What we're hearing, and I love Whoopi is pushing this big time. We have to operate in community. We have to operate in community.
Unity in the
Absolutely.
community. If y'all ain't learned nothing from that Trump man in the White House, the man knows how to unify his population.
It's true.
And I don't care what lie he says.
Yep.
They are on board with it. We as Black
1,000%.
people need to learn the principle of unity and working together to grow us together, and realize that we cannot survive relying on and waiting for the white savior to come, because he ain't coming. He made that perfectly clear. And so we need to open up our ears and hear and listen, and not trust them and distrust us, because they are going to come after you. We possibly may, but you can be guaranteed they are. Gary, we want to thank you so much for being here today. Please feel free to come back anytime, as well as I'd like to ask you if you would come and be a judge for the kids that I do Nifty, the business plan competitions for.
Anytime.
And coaching maybe in the summertime. We're going to be at El Camino this summer. So we're excited about that. And so I'll reach out to you about that. Guys, next week we have Mr. Isaac Hayes III, and he is the founder and CEO of Fanbase, which is a social media platform that was created as specifically for Black content creators. You can monetize it the minute you sign up, and which is unique in some cases from some of the other platforms, because some of them require a lot of followers. But he is going to be on next Thursday to talk about his platform and why he created it. You also can invest in it, so you can be partial owner. We want to make sure that we start creating environments that we can thrive in and not survive in. Very, very important. And so tune in. If we can have the biggest crowd we've ever had on the community briefing, that would be completely awesome. And so we're going to ask you guys, as they say at church, each one bring one.
Or 5.
Or 5 or 10. Just tell everybody, bring your young people, have them tune in. It doesn't cost anything. And so that he sees that there is an interest. There have been numerous Black social media platforms that have come onto the marketplace, and we did not support them, and they did not survive. So if we can support Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and or X or whatever the heck you want to call it, and LinkedIn, we sure in the hell should be able to support somebody that looks like us. And if we can't, that's a sad statement that we are making once again. So with that, that's all I'm going to say about it. So each one bring 5. And Sarah, before we jump off, first of all, let's give Mr. Polk a great big hand, Mr. Gary. Thank you, Gary. And,
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that social enterprise thing is really big. We all of you should be reaching out to him. If you know anyone that has a nonprofit and it's just barely surviving, that might be a way to do it. Sarah, can you and there's Gary's all his information. Take a screenshot, guys, and so you will have it. And Sarah, would you like to speak on the event you have coming up? And then Colette has been down. She's been recuperating. So we just like her to say hi and have her come back and tell us not today, but come back and tell us about what we need to do as far as the SBA goes.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. Everybody, real quick, we have our Salute to Black Women coming up on March 29th, Saturday at the Sheraton Gateway. It's another fabulous, empowering day it will be. So I put the information in the chat, and I was putting some other information too. I believe Urban League has a capacity building a seminar or something coming up, and there's a deadline coming up. So I put some stuff in the chat. But yeah, we'd love to see you on March 29th. And Gary, I'm going to be calling you. We need to chat.
Yeah.
So, I thoroughly appreciate the presentation today.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. I believe in partnerships too. We're good partners with PCR, as Colette knows. I was sincere about wanting to be a partner with Community Briefing. So I think partnerships is part of it as well. We have to partner because we're not in competition with each other. We really are not. We're here to help each other. We work with nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit, you're welcome at the Polk Institute. I know the SBA doesn't consider nonprofits as a business, but we do. So if you're in that mode,
nonprofits are definitely a business. We have to file things. We have to.
We need money.
I understand that, but
we need money.
Maybe it's to our benefit, but the SBA says otherwise.
Right.
Yeah, they do. They do. Unless you're buying property. As you said, unless you're buying some real estate, then you're a nonprofit. Then you are a business for them.
But social enterprise is the way to go. So
yeah, that is definitely the way to go. And to add on a couple more, one of the most popular ones is Homeboy's Bakery.
Yes.
They were one of the first ones, and the other one was Out of the Closet because they didn't want any government's financing to tell them what they could do in that during the AIDS epidemic. So that's why the Out of the Closet was created, and it is a social enterprise. Those were one of the first two I knew about that have been, and the Goodwill, I would imagine, because they're doing the exact same thing. Is they operating in that space where they bring in people with deficiencies or disabilities and teach them and let them work. So there's a number of them out there. I think the rest of us that have nonprofits should really think about that. Whatever that you're selling T-shirts, man, whatever it is, you teaching somebody how to make them. That is a good way to go about that.
The one final comment that I have is I get a lot of people saying they want to start a business, but they're looking for grants. I'm like, wait a minute, you starting a for-profit business and you're looking for somebody to grant you some money?
Because they don't want to take a loan.
Well, that came out of COVID.
I get that, but again, you got to be educated about the process, right?
Right.
Yeah. But see, they were giving grants to for-profit businesses during COVID, and I think that kind of got people mixed up a little bit because normally grants were only for nonprofits.
Correct.
Right, exactly, and everybody's relying on. But there are Los Angeles Urban League, because of the fact, and actually it's probably one of the ones that's going to have the most available at this point, is because they're really a civil rights organization. And for the white folks that are feeling guilty, they're going to be dumping money somewhere. And so the Urban League does have a number of grant programs that they offer. I'm a consultant over there and a coach, and we have the Intuit grant right now, and we have a couple others going on. Pepsi and some other folks have got some grants out there, and we have the MBDA program. There's no money on the backside of that, but there's a lot of education. If you're interested in that, reach out to me, because we are now looking for businesses to bring into the MBDA program, the creative industry as well as the food and beverage industry. So even if you're an abstract of either one of those, you're welcome to participate, and those programs are free of charge. So yeah, they're one of the ones that you still can get a grant because that's just because of what they do. All righty, guys.
I don't use the word free of charge, because those are your tax dollars
Your
at
tax
work.
dollars, yeah, they're
Because when
programs
you
that
tell
offer.
folks free, they don't show up, they don't commit, so it's your tax dollars at work.
Okay, your tax
Yeah.
dollars at work, but I do
Mhm.
know there's some, if you want to go through a year program and come out on the backside of it with a few dollars to incorporate, yeah, or to invest in your marketing plan or new equipment or hiring a new employee that will help you grow your business, then that's what you guys want to do. Emma, hello, and everyone else. And my girl Jasmine is with us again. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We want you all to come back next Thursday with some friends, as many as you can pull in, so that we can give Isaac a great welcome, and then hopefully you guys may have gone over to Fanbase before that. And it doesn't cost you anything to sign up over there, and it's a great platform. Yesterday I jumped on a live they have like a clubhouse type of thing, and we had a conversation on, was AI making us dumber? And so there were a lot of educators on, and we all were sharing how we're using it with our education and curriculums to engage our kids to really want to learn. And so it was a great conversation. So Fanbase is kind of fun and cool. We just got to bring everybody over there. Let's leave X, and let's leave Facebook, and let's go somewhere where they're not censoring your comments and you have to go through all these gyrations to get around the algorithm.
Did you shut down the recording, sister? It's, we're after hours.
Okay. All right, guys. So
Well,
I'm going to shut
there's
down.
a lot of natural stupidity that precedes artificial intelligence.
Yes.
It does. It does.
Yes.
That didn't go away. And that's natural stupidity.
Yeah, it's still there. So, guys, come on back next week, and I'm going to stop the recording, and we can do the afterglow.